police in Denver arrested Samantha Moreno Rodriguez, a 35-year-old mother accused of murdering her autistic 7-year-old son, Liam Husted, and abandoning his body on a remote Las Vegas hiking trail. The arrest took place in a roadside motel just hours after authorities publicly identified her as the primary suspect in her son's death. Rodriguez was taken into custody by the Denver Rocky Mountain Safe Streets Task Force and is awaiting extradition to Las Vegas, where she faces a murder charge. The tragic case began on May 28th, when hikers exploring the Mountain Springs Trailhead, a secluded area between Las Vegas and Pahrump, stumbled upon the body of a young boy hidden behind a bush. The discovery shocked authorities, who immediately launched an investigation to identify the child and determine how he had died. From the moment they arrived at the scene, police were certain the boy had been killed, but they declined to reveal the exact cause of death. It would take 10 days before the boy was identified as Liam Husted. With no initial leads, authorities turned to forensic technology to help put a name to the child. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, LVMPD, collaborated with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to create digitally enhanced images of the boy in hopes that someone might recognize him. The images were widely distributed to the public on June 3rd, and within hours, the break investigators had been waiting for finally came. A family friend from San Jose, California, saw the images and immediately recognized the boy as Liam Husted, leading police to notify his father, Nick Husted, who had been desperately searching for his son. As investigators worked to retrace Liam's last days, they discovered that Liam and his mother had left their home in San Jose on May 24th, just 4 days before his body was found. They were last seen together on May 26th in Laguna Beach, California, and later in Victorville, a desert city along Interstate 15, roughly 190 miles southwest of Las Vegas. Surveillance footage captured Rodriguez driving a dark blue 2007 Dodge Caliber sedan, its back seat packed with belongings, suggesting that she had fled her home with no intention of returning. Meanwhile, in San Jose, Liam's father, Nick Husted, had been growing increasingly concerned. On May 31st, 5 days after Liam was last seen alive, Rodriguez checked into a Denver area motel, alone. That same day, she left behind a handwritten note for Liam's father, explaining that she had taken their son, but assuring him that they were fine and that she was trying to find a home for the two of them. In the letter, she wrote, "I'm sorry I had to do it like this. I'm going to try to get a house for Liam and I, and we can talk about this in the future." Nick Husted, though deeply concerned, did not initially believe Liam was in immediate danger. He reported Liam missing on June 1st, after realizing he had not heard from Rodriguez in more than a week. By that time, however, Liam was already dead, and his mother was hundreds of miles away. As the case unfolded, authorities publicly named Rodriguez as a suspect on June 7th and launched a nationwide manhunt. The following day, after nearly 12 hours of searching, officers tracked Rodriguez to a roadside hotel in Denver and took her into custody without incident. Police believe Rodriguez acted alone in Liam's death. At the time of her arrest, she was accompanied by a man, but investigators quickly determined that he had no involvement in the crime. Lieutenant Ray Spencer of the LVMPD expressed relief that Rodriguez had been captured so swiftly, stating, "We are all relieved that we were able to get her into custody so quickly." Spencer did not provide further details about how Liam was killed or what may have motivated Rodriguez to commit such a heinous act. He cited ongoing coroner's investigations and toxicology tests, which could take weeks to complete. However, one fact was clear: Liam had not died of natural causes, and his death was not an accident. Authorities believe Liam was murdered sometime between May 26th and May 27th, before his body was dumped in the remote desert location where it was later discovered. Though Rodriguez's exact movements on those days remain unclear, investigators suspect that she had been staying in or near the Las Vegas area before abandoning Liam's body along State Route. Before Liam was identified, His case became one of the most publicized child homicide investigations in Las Vegas. The FBI offered a $10,000 reward for information, and authorities pleaded with the public for any tips that could help determine his identity and the circumstances of his death. Once Liam's identity was confirmed, detectives turned their attention to tracking down Rodriguez, who had managed to stay off the radar for several days. Before being captured, she had last been seen on May 31st in Denver, the same city where she was eventually arrested on June 8th. In an emotional statement, Lieutenant Spencer described the heartbreaking conversation he had with Liam's father, who had no idea his son was missing until the police contacted him. Spencer confirmed that Liam's father was not a suspect in the case, nor had there been any known history of child abuse prior to the murder. As the investigation continued, authorities worked to piece together Rodriguez's motive and why she chose to kill her own child. Neighbors and family members described Liam as a sweet, happy boy who had special education needs due to autism. He attended a learning center in San Jose and had an in-home counselor to help with behavioral issues, but many of these support services had been interrupted during the COVID-19 pandemic. Authorities also tried to determine whether Rodriguez had planned the murder in advance or if it had been a sudden act of violence. Given that she had packed up her belongings and fled San Jose days before Liam's death, some investigators suspected premeditation. Despite the growing list of questions, one thing was certain. Liam was gone, and the woman who should have protected him had instead taken his life. The tragic death of Liam Husted shook the community, leaving many questioning how a mother could commit such a heinous act against her own child. In the days following Samantha Moreno Rodriguez's arrest, investigators continued piecing together the chain of events that led to Liam's murder and the circumstances surrounding his final days. Forensic teams worked tirelessly to analyze the evidence collected at the scene, while detectives combed through Rodriguez's personal history, hoping to uncover clues that might explain what had driven her to this horrific act. The community in San Jose, where Liam had lived with his parents, was devastated. Neighbors, teachers, and family friends couldn't fathom how the little boy they had known could meet such a cruel fate. Liam was described by those who knew him as a sweet, quiet child who loved being outdoors and had an infectious smile. Despite his challenges with autism, he was affectionate and full of life. He had a supportive father who had been actively involved in his upbringing, though his relationship with Rodriguez had reportedly been strained for some time. As authorities continued their search for motive, one of the key pieces of evidence was the note Rodriguez left behind for Liam's father, Nick Husted. In it, she had apologized for leaving suddenly, claiming she was trying to secure a better future for Liam. But detectives saw a darker implication. The note hinted at a mother on the verge of desperation, someone who might have convinced herself that there was no way out. Even with the letter in hand, police struggled to pinpoint the exact moment when Rodriguez decided to kill her son. Investigators focused on the 3-day period between May 24th and May 27th, when she and Liam traveled from California to Nevada. The timeline suggested Rodriguez had a plan, even if it wasn't fully thought out. Her decision to flee alone to Denver, leaving Liam's body behind without reporting him missing, strongly indicated an intention to conceal the crime. Meanwhile, Rodriguez remained silent in custody, offering no immediate confession or explanation. Despite detectives' attempts to interrogate her, she refused to speak about what had happened. Her demeanor was described as cold and detached, showing little remorse for her actions. Her refusal to cooperate only strengthened the case against her. Authorities eventually confirmed through forensic testing that Liam had died within 24 hours of when his body was discovered. However, the exact cause of death was still pending toxicology reports and further examination. When pressed on whether there were signs of physical abuse prior to Liam's death, Lieutenant Spencer confirmed that there was no known history of domestic violence or neglect reported before this incident. Despite this, many experts pointed out that abuse in cases like this often goes unnoticed, particularly when it comes to children with disabilities. Some specialists in child welfare noted that Rodriguez's situation, being a single mother raising a child with autism, may have contributed to immense psychological stress. While this would never justify her actions, it raised important discussions about the lack of mental health resources for struggling parents and the isolation many single mothers face. In San Jose, Liam's father was left reeling from the devastating reality that his son was gone. He had not suspected that Rodriguez was capable of harming Liam. Even after she left with their son, he had believed she was simply trying to find them a better home. When police informed him that his son's body had been found in the Nevada desert, he was shattered. The public's reaction to the case was swift and fierce. Many were outraged, questioning how a mother could be capable of such an act. Social media was flooded with expressions of grief and anger, with people demanding the harshest possible punishment for Rodriguez. As the legal proceedings began, prosecutors pushed for first-degree murder charges, citing the premeditated nature of the crime. The prosecution aimed to prove that Rodriguez had intentionally taken Liam's life and then attempted to cover it up by fleeing the state. If convicted, she faced the possibility of life in prison without parole. In the courtroom, the case against Rodriguez continued to build. Surveillance footage, witness statements, and forensic evidence painted a chilling picture of her movements leading up to the crime. Detectives painstakingly traced her steps from San Jose to Laguna Beach, Victorville, and finally Las Vegas. They interviewed motel staff, gas station attendants, and store clerks who might have interacted with her during her journey. One crucial piece of evidence was the digitally enhanced image of Liam, which had ultimately led to his identification. The artist-rendered depiction, created by forensic specialists, had captured Liam's likeness so accurately that it triggered recognition within hours of its release. Without it, authorities might have taken much longer to identify him, giving Rodriguez even more time to evade capture. The trial drew national attention, with media outlets covering every development. The courtroom was packed with reporters, legal experts, and members of the public who had followed the case from the beginning. The prosecution argued that Rodriguez had ample opportunities to seek help if she was struggling. Instead, she had chosen to end her son's life in a remote area, ensuring that he would not be found immediately. The defense team attempted to argue that Rodriguez had been mentally unstable at the time, citing stress and emotional hardship. They painted a picture of a single mother overwhelmed by the demands of raising a child with special needs, claiming she had reached a breaking point. However, the prosecution countered that her actions after the murder, her decision to flee, her failure to report Liam missing, and her lack of cooperation, demonstrated clear intent and awareness of guilt. Throughout the trial, Liam's father remained stoic but visibly devastated. He attended every hearing, carrying a photo of his son, determined to see justice served. In a heartbreaking statement, he told the court, "Liam was my world. He was innocent, kind, and full of love. He didn't deserve this." After weeks of testimony, the jury reached a verdict. Rodriguez was found guilty of first-degree murder. The judge, in a somber tone, sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole, stating that her betrayal of her own child was beyond comprehension. As Rodriguez was led away in handcuffs, there was a sense of relief, but also an overwhelming sadness. Liam's life had been cut short in an unimaginable way, and nothing could ever bring him back. In the weeks that followed, a memorial service was held in San Jose, where hundreds gathered to honor Liam's memory. His father, family members, and the community came together to remember the joyful, loving little boy who had been taken too soon. Candles were lit, and flowers were placed at a makeshift memorial, with people leaving messages of love, sorrow, and remembrance. Though justice had been served, Liam's story left a deep scar on those who followed it. It served as a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities children face, particularly those with disabilities who may struggle to communicate their pain or reach out for help. Advocacy groups used Liam's case to raise awareness about child abuse prevention, mental health resources for parents, and the importance of speaking up when something doesn't seem right. Liam's father, Nick Husted, made it his mission to keep his son's memory alive, advocating for stronger protections for vulnerable children. In a public statement, he said, "I don't want any other parent to go through what I went through. If you suspect a child is in danger, speak up. You could save a life." Though Liam's life was tragically cut short, his story left a lasting impact, reminding the world of the fragility of life, the importance of vigilance, and the devastating consequences of unchecked violence. And while his father grieved the son he had lost, he held on to the love and joy Liam had brought into the world, determined to honor his memory in every way he could.